Transportation Committee to order. Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. Transportation Committee reviews items of interest regarding all modes of transportation in the city of Oshkosh, including motor, transit, bike, and pedestrian. We are an advisory committee, and our favorable recommendations today will go before the Oshkosh Common Council as needed. The council can accept or reject any recommendation from this committee. If you don't agree with our decision, you can discuss with a council member. If the committee does not recommend an item, a council member may sponsor a new ordinance regarding that item. All ordinance items require 2 readings before the Common Council. First reading will take place on Tuesday, April 22nd at 6 p.m. and you'll be allowed to comment on the item at that time, although the council will take no action. On Tuesday, May 13th at 6 p.m., the item will be on the second reading, at which time the council will take action. You will again be allowed to speak. This afternoon's meeting, I will read each agenda item, which time you'll be allowed to speak. Please step to the podium, give your name. Ask that you keep comments pertinent to the agenda item. The committee has 2 alternate members, and today both those alternate members will be voting. So, with that, let me have a roll call. Call the roll.
Mayor? Here. Here. Hartman?
Here.
Esslinger?
Here.
Lynch?
Here.
Can we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
From
Second.
call the roll.
Merritt?
Aye.
Hartman?
Aye.
Esslinger?
Aye.
Lynch?
Aye.
Before we get to the agenda, I wanted to recognize Councilman Esslinger. I've been on this committee twice, both times Mr. Esslinger has been on it at the same time. We were discussing before you came in that we don't have a good record with our council members because every 2 years we get a new one. So
that's what happened.
Yes, that's I think that's it. But Paul, I've seen you for at least 20 years in leadership roles here. We are so fortunate to have people like you and the rest of the folks on city council who are willing to give their time and talent to help make the city better. While I didn't always agree with your position, I always knew you were looking out for the best of our city. And so we may disagree sometimes on what that is, but clearly I knew where your heart was. So I'm going to miss you. So I suspect there are going to be other opportunities for you in the future.
Well, thanks, Al, and right back at you, and everyone that serves on these boards and commissions. As we all know, couldn't do it without them. So I know it takes time and effort, and you love doing this. So anyone that's involved, like yourself, Al, I appreciate the time that you guys also put into it.
Well, thank you. So with that, new business, stop sign intersection in Nevada and Oak.
Yes, so this is a request from one of the residents here. So this is the intersection here, I just pulled it up. It's currently a yield intersection. And as often happens usually when I get these requests, it's a result of some recent crashes or incidents or near misses. So this resident had witnessed several accidents here in the last year or two. They moved there recently and have noticed that there's a lot going on there. So I did research the crash history, and there have been 4 crashes in the last 2 years, and all of them were related to a failure to yield. So obviously, vehicles are supposed to yield, but for whatever reason, they're not. So the request was to convert this from a yield to a stop intersection. So the warrants for stop signs are generally 3 or more right angle crashes in a 12-month period, or 5 or more in a 2-year period. So we're at 4, so it doesn't quite meet that, but it's close. 3,000. The other warrants are 3,000 or more vehicles per day entering the intersection. This one isn't to that level of traffic. And then a severe sight distance problem, which isn't an issue here either. But although it doesn't quite meet the warrant for the stop sign, it's very close. And especially the last 2 years, it's obviously become an issue. For a low volume intersection like that, 4 crashes in 2 years is quite a bit. So I think converting the intersection from yield to stopped is likely to reduce the volume of crashes. I mean, obviously vehicles still got to obey the signs out there. But if it was approved, then Oak would stop instead of yielding to Nevada. And that's pretty consistent with some of the other intersections in this vicinity. So I'm recommending approval.
Okay. Any discussion on that? If not, can I have a motion to approve?
Okay, second.
No further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Merritt,
Aye.
Hartman,
Aye.
Esslinger,
Aye.
Lynch.
Item number 2, the loading zone on New York Avenue.
Yeah, well, okay, so this is, so these next two are just some cleanup items. This one is a request to remove the loading zone and the no stopping, standing, waiting on Custer Avenue. Probably gonna have some more updates coming in the near future because Custer Avenue is on the CIP for reconstruction, and I can't remember if it's next year or the year after. But anyway, currently there's a loading zone and a no stopping, standing, waiting area on the west side of Custer from New York to 525 feet north of there. It's obviously was there for when Merrill School was in operation, which has now been demolished, so there really is no need for either of those there anymore. And then obviously once there's going to be a green space playground there once that gets installed, and we will have to see kind of what the usage is, but obviously there's not going to be a need for this as it currently stands, because the reason for it is no longer there. So
Yep. All right, can we have a motion?
Also move.
Evelyn? Sure, who's seconded?
Let's do it first.
Okay. Call the roll.
Merritt,
Aye.
Hartman.
Aye.
Esslinger.
Aye.
Lynch.
Aye.
All right. Second item, same issue, but Washington School.
Yep, so this is on Winnebago Avenue by Washington Elementary. So when my sign guys were out doing some work in the area, they had asked about this. They said, well, do we still need those signs out there? And so when I looked into it, so there's parking regulations. Currently, there's a no parking, stopping, standing, waiting and this is on Winnebago Avenue in front of the former Washington School. So those are obviously no longer needed as the school's no longer operating. I won't read all of it, but basically it's a no stopping, standing, waiting area and a no parking area. And those are both only during school days, as well as a loading zone that was only during school days. So there's no need for any of those regulations anymore. So we can remove those signs, assuming this all goes through council. And then again, that sounds like those are going to be converted in that area into houses. So we'll have to see, but
Right, we'll have to, I'm sure there'll be some review of the whole street when that
Right.
happens.
yeah. So in the future, it'll just be parking until then, or non-restricted parking, I should
Okay.
say.
Okay. Can someone move item number 3?
So moved.
John moves.
I'll second.
Evelyn seconds. Call the roll.
Merritt,
Aye.
Hartman.
Aye.
Esslinger.
Aye.
Lynch.
Aye.
Now, item number 4, convert 4 stalls from 2-hour to permit parking in the east lot, 300 east lot.
Okay, so this is 300 East Lot. There is a high demand for permit stalls in this lot. I got a call from one of a gentleman that works at one of the businesses in the former bank building, and so he has purchased a permit, but he said often there's not enough parking stalls. So he has been he's like, I don't know. He said there's at least 5 of us that park there, and there's only I think there's 5 stalls now. So he said some days I can't even get one of those permit stalls. So he said he's been parking and kind of chancing whether he gets a ticket or not. But with the new passport as well, I think it makes sense to add those other 4 stalls in that back row and make them permit. And then people like him, because he did say there's more businesses filling that area as well that are going to want permits. But the other thing then is that they'll also be available for daily permits. So if nobody's parked there, then once we get the passport software, that would be an option as well to get the daily permits. So I'm recommending we add those other few stalls there, which I can bring it up here if I can find it.
Okay. Any discussion on that? Concerns?
I'll just bring this up real quick. So basically, it's adding these others stuff. Oh wait, that's the wrong one. Right, that's the. Okay, so it's just basically adding these other stalls here. So this whole row would be permit then. And one of them's already sold, so. I've been kind of monitoring that area every day just to make sure we weren't causing any issues with free parking, and then there's plenty of parking. I haven't seen any issues yet.
The permit, is that 24 hours, is that just till 6?
No, that's permits are 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday
Okay.
through Friday.
The only reason I ask is because the new Truffle Pig restaurant is just half a block away.
Yep.
And just looking at parking around that area, I think this lot is going to be more popular when that
Sure.
restaurant opens.
Yeah, I guess technically if you had a permit, you could park in one of the stalls overnight. Enforcement's 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. However, everybody I've talked to that uses those stalls works in those businesses, so they're not there after 6 p.m.
Okay. All right. Okay. So can someone move item 4, which is converting those 4 stalls?
Move it.
Mr. Dixon moves it.
Second.
John seconds. We'll call the roll.
Merritt,
Aye.
Hartman,
Aye.
Esslinger,
Aye.
Lynch.
Aye.
All right. Item number 5, convert 7 stalls from 2-hour parking to permit parking.
All right, this is the other one. So we're looking at converting, we got these, this row with, what is it, 4 permit stalls, 5 permit stalls currently, 4. Converting this whole row to permit. I know that these back rows are parked pretty much every day. I know the guy that owns a comic book store and a couple others use these every day. And then there's a couple cars that use these too. The police department is adding a downtown field office, so if I remember right, it's at like 101 Algoma, or which is basically on the corner over here. So they are requesting that they are going to need 4 to 5 parking stalls for their officers and social workers or whoever's going to be manning this office. So I've been working with the police chief, and I said, well, I think what we could do is make this row permit and then allow them to have 4 or 5 permit stalls in this lot for their vehicles when they man this office there. And again, I've been monitoring that lot as well, and there's ample parking available. You know, obviously, the majority of people that use this lot are if they're dining at Manila or something like that, but there's still, we got this whole 2+ rows of free 2-hour parking still available. So at this time, I don't see that as being an issue. So the police department would take up like 5 of these stalls, and then there would be a couple extra. And I know that when we went to the leased parking, I did talk to a couple business owners that were concerned maybe there wasn't enough permit parking in this lot, so I think this will solve 2 issues. It'll give the police department some permit stalls and add a couple more for other people to use as well.
But will that office be open 24/7? So they'll be using
Yeah.
those permits
Yeah.
after 6 o'clock.
Right, so those 5 will be pretty much taken up by the police department, but it'll add another 2 permit stalls that anybody can use.
Okay. All right. Any questions? Can we have a motion on converting those 7 stalls?
Also move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Esslinger seconds. Call the roll, please.
Merritt,
Aye.
Hartman,
Aye.
Esslinger,
Aye.
Lynch.
Aye.
I know we're gonna permit those all the time, but is that office gonna be open 24 hours, do you know?
Probably not going to be used 24 hours. Monday through Saturday, 7 till 8, 9 o'clock at night.
Okay.
And somewhere within that range. But yeah, it's going to be 5.
Okay.
5 people working.
Yeah, we're gonna sign them for the police department, also so they have a visual presence there, but, so yeah, those will be taken out of the general permit area. But I was just curious. I don't know if they're actually going to be there 24/7, so it sounds like they won't necessarily be there 24/7.
Okay. Sixth agenda item is the reviewing the report on our top 10 crash locations.
Yeah, so. All right, so every year I try to take a look at, you know, the top crash areas in the city. So this would be for 2024. So this last year there were 1,512 approximately. It depends when you pull the report, so the number goes, but that's really close. And out of that there were 18 serious injuries, 144 minor, 167 possible, and 59 bike and pedestrian injuries. This just kind of tells you where those crashes occurred on a map. What I do is then I try to kind of take the top 10 out of there and see if there's anything that might be able to help with. But just a couple notes. So the 5 fatalities, 3 involved pedestrians, 2 involved motorcycles. All 5 had some degree of unsafe or inattentive behavior, such as aggressive driving or unsafe backing or alcohol. The good news is the number of injuries and possible injuries in 2024, they did decrease slightly. So in 2023, we had 350. In 2024, we had 329. The bad news is the number of fatalities went up this last year, unfortunately. The number of crashes with bike or pedestrians involved also went up. It was 16 in 23, and it was up to 38 in 2024. That's a little concerning since the city has invested a lot of money into pedestrian crossing infrastructure, as well as to help bicycles as well with the rectangular rapidly flashing beacons, overhead LED pedestrian crossing signs, speed boards. You know, as you know, we've installed those RFBs at a few of the roundabouts. We also installed them by Lourdes Academy on Jocelyn, and then in the past years, one on Witzel and one on 9th as well. Some other measures we take to try to improve the safety for the bikes and pedestrians are using the Continental crosswalk paintings. Those are the bold lines that you see, and we use those in high traffic areas like Congress and Arboretum and Summit. That helps as well. The UWO area, we have the Hawk signal. That hasn't been as popular, but that's still there. We've done some other things. You know, when Main Street was reconstructed, we made it a little more pedestrian friendly with the wider sidewalks and pedestrian bump outs. Before the RFBs, we've tried the pedestrian flags at the roundabouts. We've held some pedestrian safety days over the last few years, as well as they do the bike event every year. The police department has a motorcycle unit that focuses on educating and enforcing pedestrian laws for motorists, especially in the summer. So, you know, we're using all the latest technology and methods available. And Jackson Street, you know, with the neighborhood, we did the some of the safety improvements with the speed boards, and there's also the road diet on South Main Street that helped accommodations for pedestrians and bicycles. And last year they added bike lanes at County Highway I south of Waukau to help calm traffic as well. The most recent thing for the bike and pedestrians, as you're aware, is we applied for grant funding for a pedestrian bridge over 41, which would help reduce, I believe, some of these incidents at the roundabouts. Unfortunately, right now that grant is on pause, you know, as many of the federal grants and programs are being reviewed, so we don't know what that means for us. I know the last I heard they checked in on about a month ago and we were told it was on pause, whatever that means. So anyway, that would be a welcome improvement, because some of these bike and pedestrian issues were at roundabouts, and one of the goals of the bridge is to improve the bike and pedestrian safety going over Highway 41. So that's a little bit more about the bike and peds. Like I mentioned, I try to look at what the top 10 locations are each year, and try to analyze the few of those that maybe we could do something about. So that was this other map. So as you can see here, not unexpectedly, most of them are the roundabouts, but as you know, the roundabouts move the most traffic. Those are our highest volume intersections in the city, so it's not unexpected to have higher crash numbers at those intersections. You know, those have done what they're intended to do as far as they reduce the number of injuries and the severity of crashes, because now instead of right angles, you're just having more glancing blows. Initially, when they were installed, the crash numbers went up. They've returned to more normal level, and they move traffic well, and they have decreased injuries as well as the severity of injuries. So they're doing what they were intended to do. Like I mentioned earlier, I don't think they're probably the best for bikes and pedestrians. However, we're doing what we can to help improve that. So out of these intersections, the roundabouts that are the on and off ramps to Highway 41 are under the state's jurisdiction. The ones that are by the frontage roads are under our jurisdiction. So that's why we put the RFBs and some other things at the ones that are not on and off ramp, just the next one's over by the frontage roads. But anyway, looking at the top 10, the roundabouts those are difficult to do a lot of improvements with, other than education and enforcement. The ones that are not roundabouts that we have some jurisdiction over, there's State Highway 44 in South Park, which again, that's more of the interchange. However, I did bring that to the state's attention, and I'm going to see if they can't help us, look at that a little bit to see what we could do to improve the safety there. The other intersection that I was a little surprised by this one, but it was high in Wisconsin. There were 16 crashes there in 2024. A few of them weren't at the intersection, but there were quite a number that involved drivers disobeying red lights, which I'm not sure what the reasoning is for that. This last year, we actually added grid smart cameras at those intersections on that corridor, so it would be Pearl in Wisconsin, High in Wisconsin, Algoma in Wisconsin. And we did look at doing some timing changes there. So I'm going to look into a little bit more of a follow-up study. I did have a chance this last week to look at it a little further. Like I mentioned, 4 of the 16 weren't at the intersection. 9 of the remaining 12 were angle crashes, and 6 of those were vehicles running red lights. Nothing else really stuck out. They were all during the day in normal weather. It seems like there was a little uptick in early summer, so May and June, and then since then they've went back down. So there's a couple of thoughts, and I don't know what the issue is yet. I want to look into it a little bit more. I thought maybe it was something to do with the signal timing changes, and it could have been initially, but there's not a rear end crash issue, which generally that's like if there's poor coordination, you'll see more rear end crashes. And then we looked at some other things, like maybe the green time wasn't long enough and their motorists are trying to avoid waiting for the next cycle and going when the light's turning red. So there's a number of things to look at yet, but they went back down again, so that's good to see. But I want to look into that one a little bit further.
Are they trying to speed through the light on Wisconsin or High? Is there a way of knowing that?
Yeah.
Is it primarily Wisconsin?
It's primarily Wisconsin, yep.
So I bet it is that signal.
It's
change.
because 3 were northbound and 3 were southbound, and they were Wisconsin, the ones that disobeyed the red. So I'm working with with the traffic engineering company we use, and then also our signal guys to see if we can't figure out a better way to do the timing, or if that's the issue. So we're still still evaluating that. We're trying to determine if there was some type of trend where we could pinpoint it. We haven't quite done that yet, but I agree. I think there's something with the timing that we need to look into.
Because you had a complaint right after that happened, I remember you brought
Yeah.
that to the meeting.
Yep. Yeah, it was initially people weren't used to, because the timing was coordinated prior, so, you hit green all the way through.
Yeah,
And now the Pearl is what we call semi-actuated, so part of the day we let the cameras kind of monitor the traffic and do the timing, and then the other part it runs on the coordination. But we did change the timing pattern a little bit, so there's something there I still want to look into a little bit more, because it seems like there's something going on there.
Well, Jim, I noticed that it's primarily the roundabouts on the 41 overpasses that are the issue. We have other roundabouts in the city that didn't make that list.
Right.
I just wonder what the issue with people coming to that, to overpass. I just noticed we have other roundabouts that don't have that issue.
Right. Yep, exactly.
well, those would attract more people that do not reside here. There's still a lot of places that don't have roundabouts, so it throws people for a loop.
Yes, that's possible as well.
These 41 exits,
Oh, but it's also the non-exit, the county trunk E is Witzel that goes over.
Yeah, and those
That's on the
are-
list.
Yeah.
So,
Yep. This is just where the crashes were at High in Wisconsin, so I put that in your packet as well. But like I said, I still need to look into this a little bit more. But you can see it did obviously jump this last summer, and now it's come back down again, so
Okay.
we'll see. And then the other thing I looked at, because I know this has been of interest the last few years, is this Jackson Street corridor. I want to look at this probably for another year or two yet, just to keep it on the radar. But we implemented those changes that were recommended back in, I think it was summer of '21, and we put the speed boards in, some additional crosswalks, some rectangular rapidly flashing beacons in the road diet. From what I've heard, they've successfully calmed traffic as intended. Vehicle speeds and complaints from neighbors have decreased drastically, but this is some of the crash data for that corridor. Again, it's a major arterial, so it does have high traffic volume. Some level of crashes is expected, but there was an increase in '22, which carried into '23. But then again, I think some of that was due to the construction of Val Phillips Middle School. There was a lot going on those couple summers. There was a lot of utilities, the road lane closures, there was a lot going on. So last year, we discussed what the impact of those projects potentially could have been on the traffic incidents. So it's encouraging to see that the number of crashes went down. It was, at a high of 59 and 22, went down to 41 and 23. Now it's down to 34. And then last year I noticed that, so in 23, the number of rear end crashes had went up a little bit, but those numbers have come back down again. So I think it'll be interesting to see what another year brings. But I intend to keep that one on the radar, because I'm real interested to see how that, what the road diet I think did justice to the traffic calming, but I'm still interested to see how it affects the crash history. So that's all I have on the crash reports.
any questions for Jim on this? Okay. Future agenda items, staff statements?
I don't have any. The only thing I wanted to mention is you haven't got transit ridership reports this month or last. We do have them, however, since we went to the Wisco, the fare reader system, we have to tweak those reports, because the way that we don't have monthly passes anymore, and we don't have some of the things that are listed on there, so we got to recategorize everything and redo the report. So we're working on it with our database developer on that. We had an issue with our mobile app as far as tracking the buses. So he's been working on that for the last couple months. We did get that fixed, and it's now up and running again. Apple and Google had done some things with the way that stuff that I don't understand, but something how the apps and developers work together. So he's been working on that, and he's got it all fixed now, so our app works again. And then one of the next projects will be to work on fixing our ridership report so that the numbers are right. It's just recategorizing the type of rides, so that we eliminate the monthly passes and things like that that don't exist anymore.
And I saw in your report that the change in hours for paratransit has gone well and
Yep.
good feedback.
Yeah, it's exceeded my expectations. We had a couple people that we were able to convert to the Access to Jobs program, so they're still able to get their rides on those times that we don't offer paratransit service. So I'd say we've gotten pretty positive feedback. It's went really
I
well.
think there's only 2.
Yeah, I think we've maybe just had 1 or 2 people that had some issues we're still trying to figure out if we can help them with, but one of them didn't qualify for Access Jobs because the income was too high to meet that qualification. I can't remember what the other one was, but anyway, that's pretty good. We have a lot of riders, so if it's just 1 or 2 that are left that we'll try to help if we can, but that's overall pretty successful.
Good.
Okay, and the building, the old Grand building next to the transit, that's moving forward? It's gonna come down, or is it down already? I saw it.
No,
vacant.
it's vacant. So the story with that is we are getting through we're working with our architect and getting through all the city processes to get the plan approved. I think it's going to Plan Commission yet this month. And then once we get all the city approvals, and concurrently, we also are working with the DNR on some environmental issues to see what we're going to have to do for environmental. The train tracks used to go through there, so they stored coal there at one point in time. So there's some environmental issues. I don't think it's too bad. We're just going to have to haul some stuff to a contaminated landfill, and then we're going to probably have to do some type of vapor monitoring system. But we have to get the DNR to approve all those things. So with all that being said, then the hope is to get it out to bid at the end of April. Our architect says that so far that bids have been coming in pretty good. There's people out there looking for work, so we're hopeful we'll get a decent bid and then we can construct this summer. So that'll be done in conjunction with it. We'll bid the demolition of that building along with the construction of the new building. And then also work on that parking lot that's adjacent to it as well, because I'm sure that we'll probably have to do some storage, and that parking lot's due for some work anyway, so we'll do all that hopefully this summer into fall and complete that yet this year.
Good. Anything else? Any future agenda items?
The only thing I was going to mention, I think next month we probably should do the chair election again.
Yes.
Every year I know we're supposed to do that. I just have to try to forget, but then it's always a good time when they reshuffle whoever our council liaison is going to be. That's always a good time to do that. So I'll put that on the agenda for next month.
With that,
I'll move to adjourn.
Second?
call the roll.
Merritt,
Okay.
Hartman,
Aye.
Hesslinger,
Aye.
Lynch.
Aye.
Thank you.
Well, Paul, I'm going to miss you on this.